My name is Christine, and at 35 years old, the first thing that struck me was the smell. Sharp metallic, like the ink from freshly signed checks. It clung to the papers littering the carpet in the guest room where my brother had been staying. I bent down and picked one up. A withdrawal slip, my signature, only it wasn't mine. The numbers blurred as my eyes locked on the figure, $20,000. Another slip lay beneath it, this one for $35,000. My throat tightened as I gathered them into trembling hands. The room was stripped bare. The suitcase I'd seen in the corner last night was gone. Drawers gaped open. Clothes missing. Even the photo frames I'd left on the dresser. Snapshots of us as kids at Cannon Beach. Our parents smiling in the background were empty, their glass fronts catching the morning light but showing nothing behind them. On the pillow, I found the note scrawled in my brother's handwriting. The words were hurried but unmistakable. Sorry, Kristen. Cassandra says we need a fresh start. Don't look for us. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the mattress still dented from where he'd slept. Dorian was 41 years old, yet he had vanished like a teenager sneaking out after curfew. Only he had taken more than curfew hours. He had taken nearly everything. I pressed the forged slips to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. This wasn't some petty theft. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. From downstairs came the faint sound of footsteps, lighter and quicker than an adult's. My son Rowan was awake, and I knew in moments he would see the wreckage left behind. Mom? Rowan's voice came from the doorway. Thin but steady, he stood there in his rumpled t-shirt, his hair still mussed from sleep. His eyes swept across the mess of papers in my lap and the empty drawers behind me. What happened? I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. How could I tell my 12-year-old that his uncle had stolen everything? I fumbled for an answer, but Rowan stepped into the room before I could speak. He crouched beside me, studying the slips in my hands. For a moment, I braced myself for the tears, the panic. Instead, a strange calm spread across his face. He smiled. Mom, don't worry, I handled it. I stared at him. What do you mean, handled it? Rowan pulled a phone from his pocket. Not his old scratched-up one, but a sleek black device I didn't recognize. With a few swipes, he showed me a profile picture from a database I had never seen before. Beneath the photo, the name read Catherine Voss. Warrants in 3 states, charges ranging from fraud to assault. That's Cassandra, Rowan said matter-of-factly. Your brother's girlfriend, not who she says she is. My mouth went dry. How could you possibly— I've been watching him, Rowan interrupted, his tone disturbingly mature. He thought his late-night calls were secret. I tracked his phone. I copied his texts. Once I saw her name wasn't real, I dug deeper. Public records are public. Mom, you just have to know where to look. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. My son, who still left Legos scattered across the living room floor, was talking like a private investigator. His small fingers scrolled through documents, arrest reports, addresses. He looked up at me with a certainty I couldn't quite meet. It's all taken care of. Uncle Dorian isn't as clever as he thinks. Relief flickered through me, tangled with unease. Before I could form a response, a sharp knock echoed from the front door downstairs. The knock came again, firmer this time. I forced my legs to carry me downstairs, Rowan trailing close behind. Through the glass pane, I saw 2 officers waiting on the porch, their uniforms crisp against the gray Portland morning. Mrs. Marlowe? The taller one asked when I opened the door. His voice was professional, but not unkind. I'm Detective Halverson. This is Officer Diaz. May we come in? My stomach clenched. I stepped aside, motioning them toward the living room. Rowan sank into the armchair, his small hands folded neatly in his lap. Halverson pulled a folder from under his arm and opened it on the coffee table. We received a tip early this morning. Your brother, Dorian Marlowe, was apprehended at a gas station off I-5, about 40 miles south. He was with a woman identified as Catherine Voss. The name landed like a stone. I flicked a glance at Rowan, whose expression didn't change. Diaz slid photographs across to me. Grainy surveillance images of Dorian withdrawing cash from ATMs. Catherine at his side. Bank records printed with my forged signature. Text message transcripts planning their escape. The evidence was overwhelming. I pressed my hand to my mouth. Oh God, I whispered. The words were true in their shock, if not in their surprise. Halverson softened his tone. The funds have been recovered. We'll need you to verify the withdrawals weren't authorized, but it looks like you'll get most of your money back. I nodded quickly, pretending to study the papers while my mind spun. The tip they spoke of? It wasn't anonymous at all. It was Rowan. My 12-year-old had fed the authorities everything they needed. I forced my voice steady. I didn't know he was capable of this. I never imagined. We understand, Halverson said, closing the folder. Someone was looking out for you. Rowan shifted slightly in his chair, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. Before I could react, the phone on the end table rang, its shrill tones slicing through the silence. The phone's shrill ring had barely faded when I picked it up, my hand shaking. Hello? A rush of static, then Dorian's voice, raw and desperate. Kristen, it's me. Don't hang up, please. I swallowed hard. Where are you? County jail. They got us, Catherine and me. But listen, this wasn't random. Someone set me up, someone close. They knew everything. Our route, the withdrawals, even the burner phone. Who else could have known that? Who? I closed my eyes, staring at the folder of evidence still lying on the coffee table. My son sat a few feet away, quiet as a shadow, his gaze fixed on me. Dorian, I managed. You made your choices. You signed my name. You stole from me. I was going to pay it back, he said quickly, words tripping over themselves. She told me it was an investment, a chance to finally fix everything, but someone wanted me to fall. Cassandra's dangerous. But this, it's bigger than her. My throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to demand details, to ask him what exactly he meant. But Rowan shifted in the chair, tilting his head slightly, watching me. I don't know anything, I said at last, my voice thin but firm. You'll have to deal with the consequences. A long pause, then the sound of him exhaling hard. You don't get it. They're playing a game with me. With us. Be careful. The line went dead. I lowered the receiver slowly, my palm damp with sweat. The room was silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock. Rowan leaned back, crossing one leg over the other in a gesture far too adult. Maybe she betrayed him, he said almost lightly. Criminals eat their own. The simplicity of the suggestion should have comforted me, but instead it rooted itself deep inside my chest, cold and heavy as the afternoon light shifted across the floorboards. That evening, after the police had gone and the house felt too quiet, I found Rowan at the kitchen table with a notebook open in front of him. His pen moved steadily across the page, his brows knit in concentration. He didn't notice me lingering in the doorway. Homework? I asked, trying to sound casual. He shook his head without looking up. A letter for Uncle Dorian. I think it might help him. I wanted to tell him not to bother, that Dorian didn't deserve a single word, but Rowan's tone was calm, purposeful. I left him to it, though unease prickled along my skin. Later, when he'd gone upstairs, I found the letter on the counter, neatly folded with Uncle written across the front. My better judgment told me to leave it alone, but my hands moved on their own. I unfolded the page and began to read. The handwriting was careful, almost adult, and the words cut sharper than I expected. Dear Uncle Dorian, I forgive you for stealing from us. I forgive you for choosing a criminal over your family. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Prison has rules. You never liked rules, but maybe they'll finally teach you. You belong there, because out here, you only hurt the people who care about you. I felt my chest tighten. The next lines chilled me even more. I lowered the letter, my hands trembling. The words weren't written by a 12-year-old boy. They were crafted by someone who understood how to wound, how to dominate. Forgiveness cloaked in threat. Mercy sharpened into a blade. Awe and terror wrestled inside me. This was my son, my sweet boy, who still asked for an extra blanket at night. Yet here he was, shaping sentences like a man who had studied cruelty. I refolded the paper, slid it back where I found it, and pressed my palms against the counter to steady myself. Upstairs, I heard Rowan's door close, and in the silence that followed, the knock at the front door returned, heavier than before. The pounding at the door came just as I was slipping Rowan's letter back onto the counter. I startled, clutching the edge of the sink to steady myself. When I opened the door, a woman in a navy blazer introduced herself with brisk efficiency. Jennifer Walsh, Child Protective Services. May I come in? My throat went dry. Of course, I managed, stepping aside. She carried a clipboard, her smile professional but sharp. We received a report expressing concerns about your son's well-being. With your brother's recent arrest, it's routine we follow up. I glanced at Rowan, who had appeared at the top of the stairs. He came down slowly, polite as ever, and offered his hand with a composure that made him look years older. "Good afternoon, ma'am." Jennifer seemed impressed. "Polite, too. That's nice to see." She asked to see his room. I braced myself, but Rowan opened the door with a flourish. Everything was immaculate. Bed made, books stacked by subject, clothes folded in drawers. His laptop sat closed on the desk, a row of sharpened pencils beside it. Jennifer made notes, nodding. "Spotless. You should be proud, Mrs. Marlowe." Rowan answered her questions with practiced ease about school, friends, how he was coping with his uncle's arrest. He spoke with balance, never defensive, never rehearsed, just enough detail to sound natural. "Sometimes I feel sad," he admitted softly, "but Mom always makes sure I'm okay." Jennifer's face softened. That's a very healthy way of putting it. By the time she finished, she was practically glowing. "Your son is one of the most well-adjusted children I've met in these circumstances. I'll file a positive report. Likely no further follow-up will be needed." I forced a smile, thanked her, and saw her out. The moment the door closed, Rowan turned to me with a small, satisfied grin. "Easy," he said, heading toward the kitchen as though nothing had happened. I stood frozen in the hallway, heart thudding, the echo of Jennifer's praise still ringing in my ears. Outside, the world saw perfection. Inside, I could feel suspicion rooting deeper, and it only grew stronger when the phone rang again, flashing the county jail's number across the screen. The phone rang just after midnight, its shrill tone slicing through the silence of the house. I fumbled for it on the nightstand, and a clipped voice on the other end told me my brother had been rushed from the jail to the hospital. When I arrived, the fluorescent lights seemed harsher than usual, humming above the sterile hallway. A nurse led me to his room. Dorian lay on the bed, his skin pale, the bruises on his neck dark and raw. For a moment, I saw only the boy he once was, reckless but laughing, always pulling me into trouble. And then the man who had emptied my accounts came rushing back. His eyelids fluttered open. "Kristen," he rasped, every word scraping his throat. "You have to listen. Watch your boy." He watched me. I gripped the rail of his bed, trying to steady myself. "You're weak. You need to rest." "No," he whispered fiercely. "Rowan." He knew everything before I even acted. He knew. Cassandra said he gave her chills, like he could see through her. The door creaked, and our mother Martha hurried in. She clutched her handbag against her chest like armor, her eyes already glistening with tears. She went straight to Dorian's side, smoothing his hair with shaking hands. "Don't start with that," she said sharply. "You betrayed us, Dorian. Don't drag Rowan into your guilt. He's a good boy. The only good thing left." Dorian's gaze locked on mine, desperate and pleading. "Please, just watch him." I gave a small nod, though my throat felt tight with words I couldn't speak. Martha tugged gently at my arm. "Let's go. He needs sleep, not more lies." We stepped out into the night air, but Dorian's voice clung to me, faint and broken. "Watch your boy." It echoed all the way home, louder than the hum of the tires on the empty road, and it followed me as I unlocked the front door where the house was waiting in silence. By the time we returned home from the hospital, the house was silent, but my nerves were raw. I hadn't even taken off my coat when the phone rang again. The number was unfamiliar, but something in me knew before I answered. "Kristen," a woman's voice hissed, sharp and venomous. "It's Catherine. Or should I say Catherine Voss? You think you're clever, don't you? I know who tipped the police. It wasn't luck. And if you don't want me telling your brother the truth, you'd better—" The phone was plucked from my hand before she could finish. Rowan, suddenly at my side, pressed the receiver to his ear. His voice was steady, almost amused. "If you really knew anything, you wouldn't be calling from a burner in the middle of the night. You'd be running, which, by the way, you should be." There was a pause on the other end, then a muffled curse before the line went dead. Rowan handed the phone back, his expression smooth. "She's bluffing, Mom. Scammers always try to scare you. It's what they do best." I nodded, though my pulse still raced. "How did you know it was her?" He shrugged lightly, too lightly. "Who else would call? Don't worry, she's got nothing." But for the briefest moment, just before the mask slid back into place, I caught it. Something flickering in his eyes. Panic. Not long, not loud, just a flash like lightning behind a storm. Then it was gone, replaced with the calm confidence he always wore. See, Rowan smiled, already moving toward the kitchen. Handled. I stood frozen in the hallway, phone heavy in my hand, the silence pressing in. Upstairs, the floor creaked as he climbed the steps, and I realized I wasn't sure if the sound comforted me or made the walls feel thinner. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I wandered into the kitchen, restless, unable to shake Catherine's voice from my mind. On the counter sat Rowan's notebook, half buried under a stack of mail. I pulled it free, meaning only to tidy, but the page fell open on its own. It wasn't homework. It was a chessboard drawn in neat squares, each piece carefully sketched. The pawns had been advanced across the board, every one of them promoted into queens. The king, cornered, had no escape. A chill worked through me. Find something interesting? Rowan's voice came from the doorway. He strolled in, bare feet silent on the tile, his expression unreadable. I held the notebook up. What is this? He tilted his head, studying me. It's strategy, Mom. Endgame positions. Pawns aren't weak if they keep moving forward. His eyes glinted. Family is what you protect, not what you forgive. I set the notebook down, forcing my voice steady. Rowan, you're 12. You're not supposed to carry the weight of everyone's sins on your shoulders. You need to talk to someone, a counselor. There have to be limits. For the first time, his mask faltered just slightly. He looked at me, something hard flickering beneath the surface, and then he smiled with practiced ease. If that's what you want, sure, I'll go. I'll say all the right things. That's not what I meant, I said quickly. I want you to be honest, to feel like a kid again. His smile lingered, but his words cut through me like glass. I can do that, Mom, as long as no one threatens us again. The casual tone made my chest tighten because I knew it wasn't a promise. It was a condition. I gathered the notebook and slid it into a drawer, my hands trembling, while Rowan poured himself a glass of milk as if nothing had been said. The sound of the front door opening broke the silence, and my mother's weary voice carried down the hallway. The next morning, the smell of pancakes drifted through the house. I padded into the kitchen to find Rowan at the stove, flipping golden circles onto a plate while my mother sat at the table, beaming as though nothing in our world had cracked. He looked every bit the boy he was supposed to be. Bare feet, messy hair, humming off key. Good morning, Mom, he said, sliding a plate toward me. Coffee's ready, too. I forced a smile, but the night before pressed heavy in my chest. At dawn, the hospital had called. Dorian wanted me to come. His voice was broken, pleading. Tell the truth about Rowan. He begged, please, Kristen, before it's too late. I sat at his bedside, hearing the same desperate refrain he had whispered before. But as I looked at him, defeated, chained by his own choices, I realized that exposing Rowan would not save him. It would only tear apart what little remained of our family. Back home, I carried Rowan's letter upstairs and slid it into the fireproof safe where we kept birth certificates and insurance papers. I turned the key slowly, the click of the lock sounding final. The letter would stay hidden, just like the truth. When I returned to the kitchen, Rowan was already seated, passing syrup to Grandma with a polite grin. His eyes flicked to mine, steady and unreadable. And then he smiled wide, innocent, the picture of any 12-year-old boy. I sat down across from him, the taste of pancakes turning to ash in my mouth, and told myself silence was protection, even as I wondered what game my son might be playing next.